Now, so I'm back again to talk a little bit more on a study that I've been following over this past couple of weeks, right? It relates to the antibodies that Omicron create and how it neutralizes Delta variant, right? Now, I've seen the numbers happening, increasing numbers happening in the Caribbean specifically. I mean, in the US, the numbers have been increasing per day. In New York, where I am, there are about 75,000 cases yesterday. So it's safe to say that Omicron is here and Omicron is becoming the major variant. Now, I did a video just a couple days ago and I was telling people, based on all the things that I've been looking at, why this is not a bad thing. Why Omicron displacing or replacing the Delta and other variant is actually a very good thing, a blessing in disguise, as they say. Now, all that I'm saying right here, credit to a friend of mine that I've been following. Well, I call him a friend because the information that he gives is so damn straight on and on point. And I bond with him, so I call him my friend. I don't know this man. I've just been following what he's saying. His name is John Campbell. Now, John Campbell is a doctor, and he puts out independently researched videos. So today he's speaking about a study, a scientific study from Africa. This is accredited to the Africa Health Research Institute, also the School of Laboratory Medicine and Medical Science University in Africa. And they looked at the Omicron variant, right? Specifically, the Omicron variant and the neutralizing antibodies that it creates. Now, some people who catch the Delta variant, which he would explain in the video in further details because I'm no doctor, right? I'm just regurgitating the information that he said. Basically, if you catch the Delta variant before or now, it is less likely for the Delta variant antibodies in your body to neutralize Omicron infection. So if you catch Delta, you could still catch Omicron. Or if you catch Beta or any others, well, those before, they're gone. They was replaced by the new variant. However, if you catch Omicron, it is highly unlikely that you could catch the Delta. So here is why I continue to say that this is not a bad thing. Now, the Omicron variant, as studies shown far and wide, the Omicron variant infection is much lighter. It is somehow mostly affecting the upper respiratory. So a lot of people are not getting breathing issues. There are very, very few people on respirators, which is a good thing. However, it is highly transmissible. It is very easy to catch. And because that is happening, it is overpowering and replacing the Delta variant. And this is a good thing, as I say again, because if you have the Omicron variant, it would somehow protect you against the Delta, but not the other way around. So let's listen to John, because John says it perfectly. John sets it up and says it perfectly here. And I want you guys to pay attention, because there in more than one way, I think that knowing this information would lessen on the panic. I mean, you still have to be careful. People still have to be careful. You still have to boost your immunity. You still have to do those things, social distance and all of these things, sanitize. All of these things are still important. This is why scientists and professionals in the field is saying, because of this variant right here, it's going to be the variant that neutralize any others that may come in the very near future. So listen to John. Listen to John as he breaks it down and he speak about the neutralizing antibodies of Omicron versus the neutralizing bodies of the that of Delta. Take a listen.
So it's got a great deal of credibility behind it, is what I'm saying. Omicron has been shown to be highly transmissible. Yes, fact, that's for sure. Omicron has extensive evasion of neutralising antibody immunity, say antibody immunity generated by Delta. That is true. Antibody immunity. And of course, it's the antibody immunity. If you've got poor antibody immunity, then you can get symptomatic disease. Now, this is not talking about T-cell immunity, as we talked about with Professor Bezad just recently. We believe that is preserved. This is antibody immunity, which is going to protect against symptomatic disease. This is what this is talking about. So Omicron has extensive evasion of neutralising antibody immunity elicited by vaccination and previous SARS coronavirus 2 infection. This is why so many people are currently getting symptomatic Omicron infection, because we don't have this cross-reactivity of the antibodies from the vaccine and previous exposure to Delta variant as we would have liked. Therefore, we're getting these escape infections. Omicron infections are rapidly expanding worldwide, often in the face of high levels of Delta infection. So the Omicron infections are surging into areas where there's been a lot of Delta infection just recently. And of course, that brings to mind some pretty important questions, which of course the researchers have thought of. Do Omicron antibodies neutralise Delta virus variant? Does it work the other way around? You see, we know that if you've got Delta antibodies, that's not going to effectively neutralise Omicron. That's why so many of us are getting Omicron at the moment, because we are not protected that well by the wild type antibodies or the original virus type antibodies induced by the vaccine, or the wide scale immunity generated by the Delta, which is good for Delta but not good for Omicron. So it doesn't work the other way around, but this is the question. Do Omicron antibodies neutralise Delta virus variant? That is the question. And the answer to this does seem to be yes. Or just to rephrase that question, does neutralising immunity elicited by Omicron also enhance neutralising immunity against the Delta variant? Just rephrasing the question, really. And again, the answer does appear to be yes. But let's look at the method used. Now, this is quite impressive science on this paper, really. I mean, I've never done sort of laboratory-based virology, so some of the techniques, I've done a lot of biology in other ways, but I haven't done this specific biology, and it's pretty impressive techniques, I must say. Anyway, they've isolated the Omicron virus and the Delta virus. So, in fact, they isolated quite a few viruses of different variants, different mutation profiles. And they tested these against the plasma of 15 confirmed Omicron cases. So these would be people who were developing or had developed antibody immunity to Omicron. They used a live virus neutralization assay. In other words, their assessment used live viruses. So they used live Omicron viruses, live Delta virus, and live various mutated viruses. Now, of course, the thing with viruses is, and this is one of the reasons this is really quite clever, is viruses can only grow inside cells. As Professor Bezad said just the other day, they are obligate intracellular genetic parasites, I think was some term like that he used. They can only grow inside living cells. So volunteers, some have been previously vaccinated, some were unvaccinated individuals who were previously infected with SARS coronavirus 2 in the Omicron infection wave. So if they're infected in the Omicron wave, then these people would have antibodies to the Omicron. That is the key thing, because we want to know if the Omicron antibodies are going to protect us against Delta infection, because we want rid of this Delta variant. We've had quite enough of that. Thank you very much. Now, they're recruited soon after symptom onset. Now, the thing is, soon after symptom onset, they would not have generated a significant antibody response. But then what they did was they tested them just after onset of symptoms, because they recruited them at an early stage. Then they tested them 14 days after the onset of symptoms, when the bodies had time to make the antibodies, so they could compare them before they made antibodies and after they made antibodies. Really is quite neat. Not a large sample size, but quite detailed science. The researchers say we then measured their ability to neutralise both Omicron and Delta virus at enrolment. In other words, when they just developed the infection, versus a medium of 14 days after enrolment, when they'd had time to make the antibodies. So this was before they'd had time to mount an antibody Omicron response. This is after they'd had time to mount an antibody Omicron response. Neutralization of Omicron increased 14-fold over this time. Wow, impressive. So over the 14 days, from day. Some people were day 1, 2, 3, 4 after infection, so probably about 3 days after infection on average, where they'd start to develop a few IgMs, immunoglobulin type M's, but by 14 days they'd have a good IgM and IgG, immunoglobulin type G response. So they had good levels of antibodies after that time, and they found that there was a 14-fold increased neutralization of the Omicron virus after 14 days. In other words, they developed good immunity against the Omicron virus, which they were currently infected with. So that's good, because that means people get better from the Omicron. And we know that Omicron usually has a shorter course than Delta. So what they concluded from this was showing a developed antibody response to Omicron, which you would expect. So there's nothing surprising there. All of the variants that people have been infected with, as people develop immunity, they eliminate that virus and they have a level of immunity against that particular viral strain, So people infected with Omicron, yeah, they get immunity against Omicron, as you would expect. But also, they also developed enhanced immunity to the Delta virus neutralization 4.5 times. So 4.4 times more immunity to the Delta variant. So after 2 weeks of infection with Omicron, they were 14 times more resistant to Omicron, but 4.5 times more resistant to Delta, meaning that people would be unlikely to become infected with Delta after they have been infected with Omicron. And that's got remarkably profound implications, because it means the Omicron is protecting against the Delta. That is really quite a thing, really, that this has happened. Therefore, the increase in Delta variant neutralization in individuals infected with Omicron may result in a decreased ability of Delta to reinfect. Direct quote from the authors. We are preventing Delta reinfection. So, in other words, we've kind of got this the right way round. If we got it the right way or the wrong way around, I can't quite work that one out. So if you've had the Delta, you're not protected against the Omicron. But if you've had the Omicron, then you are protected against subsequent Delta infection. That's the key point, and this is remarkably good news. Also, emerging data indicates that Omicron is less pathogenic than Delta. So which would you prefer to have?
Right. So I hope you guys understood what was being said here, what has been said here by John. Again, guys, this is essentially great news. This is great news. This is fabulous news. I don't know if you guys understand my excitement. I am fed up with the pandemic, right? And I'm sure you're fed up with the pandemic as well. And you want to see this thing gone like yesterday. I mean, it took away the times that we spend with family and how we spend time with family, how we celebrate and how we festive and how we show off our culture. It changed life as we know it, and we want this thing to be gone. And what John is essentially saying here, that this Omicron might be the natural cure that we were looking for, that we've been looking for. Because it is so transmissible, a lot of people would catch it. If you look right now, for the folks in Grenada, I just looked at the dashboard in Grenada, right? And I believe that they were within this past couple days, there were over 400 new cases, right? And that's just what's on record. There are a lot of people who have Omicron right now. I'm sure that they don't even know that they have it. There are people walking around right now. They are asymptomatic. They don't even know that they have it. Of course, they're not going to go get tested, and they're certainly not going to go to the hospital because they don't feel sick. Then there are people right now over this number in this time frame who are just with a mild sore throat, like I had a mild sore throat, a little runny nose, and I wouldn't want to, why go through all this stress sometimes? Some people just don't want to go through it. They don't get tested because they just feel it's a minor cold, right? So the numbers are actually smaller than it really is. So say on record there are 400 new cases within the past couple days, right? The hospitalization, however, has not increased. If you check, look closely, the hospitalization has not increased with the number of new cases. So the pattern is the same in South Africa as it is all over the world. Yes, there are hospitalizations due to the Omicron or leftover variant or whatever it is, but the hospitalization is not like what we saw and not what we've seen in the previous variant. So what John is essentially saying is that the immune response from this Omicron is so powerful, right? Based on the tests that they did, the scientific research they did, it is so strong and so powerful that it is neutralizing and replacing Delta variant. So soon, it's going to take over the Delta variant. It has basically replaced the Delta variant. So essentially what I'm saying here, essentially what John is saying here, essentially what all these scientists, head of the WHO, and everyone is saying, that this might be the cure, the natural cure, not because humans are so smart, not because they created the best vaccine or whatever. Essentially, Mother Nature just saved the day. Yeah. It just saved the day. And that is the news that I think we all are looking to hear. So guys, listen, I am going to keep updating people on this, right? I'm going to keep updating everyone on the progress of these Omicron variant and what to expect. If you are infected or you test positive for COVID-19, do the same thing, guys. Isolate yourself because you're very infectious. And there are people that might get it, that the body, the immune response may not be the same like you. Some people, most people, and they're not saying all, most people will have minor, very mild symptoms. But still don't take it for granted and feel everybody would have that mild symptoms. You still protect yourself. You still hand sanitize. You still social distance and all this stuff. But this news right here is the news that I think a lot of people have been waiting to hear. For more information, guys, listen, follow this guy, John Campbell. He's a wealth of information. He's an encyclopedia of information. And he look at the research, not only research from the United States, not research from the WHO. He look at research that is done on the ground from scientists in Africa and other territories that do independent research and get that information. So listen, the numbers, don't get too panicky about the numbers at this point in time. The numbers will increase. Yes, the numbers will increase. You will see the numbers go way up. And my fear about this is that the numbers would increase. A lot of people will test positive, and you have a lot of work, things like police officers and nurses and doctors coming down ill with COVID-19. And my fear is that is where the problem will set in. There won't be possibly there won't be sufficient healthcare staff to work the hospitals because so many people are testing positive for COVID-19. As we saw in the US, when a lot of people tested positive for COVID-19, flight had to cancel. Thousands of flights have to cancel because there are not enough staff to work the shifts on the plane. So that's my only fear. That's why a lot of countries have been listening to the CDC new guideline that say 5 days after exposure that you could go back to work. All right. It's an economical move, but it's also an essential move because this particular variant, the Omicron variant, within 2 days, guys, within that 2 day period, as far as what John and other scientists are saying, you are mostly infectious. And this particular variant doesn't last as long. So hence one of the reasons why the CDC have recommended a 5-day instead of the initial 14 days or 10 days as was initially in the other variant. So a lot of countries would soon adapt this because they will soon find out that a lot of essential workers are catching COVID-19. It is very transmissible. It is simple, easy, and a lot of people would catch it. And you still have to protect yourself, social distancing, and the whole nine. So I want you guys to keep tuned to this channel, because the goal, what we are planning to do, is update you as best as possible on a daily basis, as best as possible as we get this independent information to relay it back to you. Not a time to panic, a time to still be aware but not panic. That's the message. Be aware but don't panic. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing to this channel. If you are watching us here for the first time, just click that like button or follow us on this channel as well. Follow us on our YouTube channel, and also go over there and follow John, who just hit 2 million subscribers within the past 8 months. Big up to you, John Campbell. I'm going to really try to get John on the program to talk to us more on this variant, and you could ask your question. Thanks for watching, guys. Click on share and also like. Hey, thanks for watching. Please support this channel by clicking the like and share button, and don't forget to follow.